So thank you, and hello everyone. So if you follow the mainstream media at all, if you follow the tech media, you have probably seen headlines like this one, How machines will eliminate our jobs, how robots will take over, and we will have nothing left to do. I also like this one about career advice. It seems from what the media and many technologists are saying that the future of work seems to be very bleak, and that we will soon be replaced and have nothing left to do but our hobbies, which will, of course, don't pay any money. Some of these people think that humans shouldn't work, that AI, artificial intelligence, will take us to a utopia where we can just relax and play sports and make art and play video games, which will, of course, be designed by robots. And other people think that artificial intelligence and machines are going to get so much better and cheaper at everything we humans do that it will displace us to lower and lower paying jobs, eventually to permanent unemployment, and we will have nothing to do, and it will be a breakdown of society as we know it. And many other people believe something in between these two utopian and dystopian perspectives. I believe all these perspectives about how we won't have a role in the future are a very pessimistic take on humans' capacity to evolve and compete and serve others and inspire to live better lives. So overall, I'm optimistic. I'm very optimistic about the future of work, and what I want to do today is give you 3 reasons why I'm optimistic and why I think this matters to you, whether you're a student or a government official, an entrepreneur, or just a thinker. So the first reason is that there is no data about the future. To become better and faster and cheaper than what we do, machines have to access massive amounts of data that come from humans that tell them what it is that they need to do better, faster, cheaper. Artificial intelligence learns by looking at inputs from people, identifying patterns of behavior, and then replicating or extrapolating that behavior. But replication and extrapolation is not imagination, and the future needs to be imagined. Artificial intelligence can't imagine. It can only do what we do now, but not what we may do later. Doing something in a new way is not the same as doing the old thing in a better way. This is the famous quote by Henry Ford. If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Well, we needed Ford, because if AI would have existed back then, it would have just kept making faster, stronger, cheaper horses. So, is it possible that in the future we may have some sort of super machine that, sort of the Terminator, Skynet, that will be just better than us at everything and will just eliminate us from life? Maybe. Everything's possible, I guess. I don't know when, perhaps. But right now, there's no artificial intelligence that can create a cleaner mode of transportation or solve the solar energy problem that the previous panelists were talking about. There's no artificial intelligence that can take us to Mars. There's no artificial intelligence that can figure out the future of work, what that will look like. Those problems are still up to us. Someone has to imagine the next machine. Someone has to show it how to behave, and someone has to tell it what it is that we need to get better at. What is it that we're trying to solve with each new machine? So more than ever, we need entrepreneurs to leverage technology and build this future, imagine this future. Not just because people matter, but because it's the only way to keep empowering customers and keep growing the market. There's a good quote by Jaron Lanier. Jaron Lanier is one of the inventors of virtual reality in the 80s. And he says, the danger is not to try to create machines that can do our jobs. The danger is to fool ourselves into believing that humans are not necessary. When we search in Google, make any Google search, and Google shows us the best result. Is it really the best result, or are we convincing ourselves that Google's smart and accepting it as the best result? Are we lowering our standards of what we were looking for in order to make Google seem smart? Are we lowering our standards of what social life looks like when we try to fit it into Facebook? Let's not lower the standards of the power of the human mind. I believe humans are complex organisms. They're not easy to automate. And we have wonderful creativity. So let's not delegate that skill to artificial intelligence yet, because it's not ready. The future is still up to us. And I believe being optimistic about the future is not just a hopeful perspective. Being optimistic about the future is the fuel we need to create it. The second reason I'm optimistic is that there are a set of skills that we have been developing for many years of evolution that are still valuable and will remain to be valuable, and then machines have a long way to be able to compete with us. There's two academics at MIT, Eric Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee, that have described these skills. They have in three groups, three set of skills that we do better than machines. The first group is creative endeavors, like entrepreneurship, or scientific discovery, or the arts. A second group is anything that has to do with physical dexterity and mobility, such as rock climbing, or hiking, or dancing, or playing sports. A third group is social interactions, such as caretaking, or teaching, or leadership, management, negotiation, sales. I don't know if everybody recognizes. Anybody recognizes the man on the suit? Oh, good. So the man on the suit his name is Hector Cooper, and he's Argentinian, and as I understand, he's the coach of the Egyptian national team. And from what the Uber driver on the way here told me, he's not doing a very good job, so I apologize on the name of my country. Sorry. I would add a fourth skill set to the list of Brynjolfsson and McAfee. And I think the fourth skill that we do better than machines is making sense of the world. It may surprise some of you to know that when Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, wanted some advice and ideas on what the direction of his company should be, he did not reach out to a programmer. He did not reach out to an engineer. He reached out to Alain de Botton, who is a Swiss philosopher and the author of the book, The Art of Travel, which tries to understand why we travel, what we look for when we travel, what kind of pains are we trying to soothe with our trips, and what does a successful trip look like. Chesky appreciated de Botton's efforts in trying to decipher what people look for when they travel, and he wanted his suggestions so he knew what Airbnb should deliver to its customers. This is just one example of making sense of the world, but we're going to need more people to do it. The more predictable and repetitive a task is, the more likely it will be automated, because the data is more consistent and reliable. But how much of the future is unpredictable? Every tech revolution increases the demands of certain jobs and decreases the demands of others. It's very likely that the job of data entry will disappear, because AI can do that very well, but the jobs, or the work for data scientists is growing. Who could have predicted when the Wright brothers took flight that we would need flight attendants? Who could have predicted that we would need SEO experts to help us find information online when people invented the internet? Who could have predicted that we're going to need community managers when people started gathering online? As information expands and everything gets bigger and more connected, figuring out what matters and what we should ignore is going to become a bigger and bigger problem. And that's a problem humans are better equipped to handle than machines. And the third reason that I'm optimistic is, ironically, because I see no end to the pain of human existence. I see no end to our need to consume and compete for status and need to fill our time. Life is full of sadness and emptiness, and we deal with it by creating things and serving others and pursuing goals. So as long as people have problems, whether that's hunger or poverty or just boredom, there's going to be an economic opportunity to alleviate it. So when we look at, if you look at the suicide rates of first world countries, it's clear, at least to me, that these people are not happy. It's clear that these people are not ready to abandon capitalism. These people need help. They need help. They need more services, more ideas on how to live a better life. Hopefully, as we move forward, technology, our future products and services will be less about solving biological needs and more about solving emotional and spiritual needs. Hopefully in the future, we will be able to eliminate poverty and hunger, and we can create businesses that whose goal is to help us lead more purposeful, wiser, happier lives. But as long as we're unhappy and feeling lonely and feeling apathetic or feeling inadequate, I think we have much to work on. To be clear, the optimist view is not without challenges, and it will not happen without hard work. More than ever, and probably sooner than ever, we need to tap into our imagination and our ingenuity to build this future. We need entrepreneurs to create people-centric systems, not just because it's nice, but because, as Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal, has said, the most valuable businesses of the coming decades will be those that seek to empower people rather than try to make them obsolete. So as long as technology changes, people's habits and preferences will change as well. So there will be no shortage of people, of the necessity of humans to step in, understand what people want at that point in time, and build it for them. It's only those that, at least in my opinion, it's only those that have chosen to shield themselves in the lab or in the office from the chaos and the unpredictability of society and human emotions that can be arrogant enough to say that we're close to being useless and discarded. For better or worse, people still drive the economy. I'm not trying to predict. I can't. And I will be very careful of listening too intently to anybody that shows too much certainty about what the future will look like, because the past is full of smart people making bad predictions. I'm just offering a perspective. And that perspective is this. There's as much risk in ignoring what's happening in technology as there is in being a fanatic and assuming we know exactly what will happen and how quickly. If I would have told you in 1916, 100 years ago, that you should start learning to program because in the future we're going to have computers and smartphones, you would have asked, well, how soon? Catching the wave early is as risky as catching it late. In life and in business, timing is everything. So instead of letting the media feed us doomsday scenarios because it sells, let's try to remain independent thinkers about what the future may look like. Let's be careful not to dismiss many business opportunities just because they don't seem novel enough. And let's dip our toes in the ocean of new technologies, and let's learn to surf the wave on the go. Thank you. I think I have minutes for questions if anybody has any question, or wants to have a dialogue, I guess. Aleida.
Well, first of all, thank you. Amazing speech. And I wanted to ask you about, obviously my particular background is behavioral health. And I hear things like empathy is a big buzzword in coding and in healthcare and in education and in everything that we do. And where empathy is actually a skill acquisition.
Yeah.
It's a social skill.
Yeah.
And we are the applied science to embed empathy. Now, empathy can look different for you than it looks for me, but it is predictable and it is codable. Now, leading up to my question, we can sit on the back end of a robotic, enterprise and be able to help that robot be able to show empathy, because I want to be very careful, because it's a machine and you're absolutely right. It will only do what we program it to do.
Right.
There is no creativity in that sense. But we can predict that the social skill acquisition of empathy can be delivered through an artificially intelligent mechanism to be able to scale the skill acquisition for empathy. So I would like to know what your opinion is on embedding empathy into our applications, into our devices, into whatever it is that we're designing, to scale.
Yeah. When I hear that we can code certain emotions or that we can code certain social understanding, I always cringe a little just because from my following, one of my best friends, he's the youngest AI engineer, scientist on Facebook. And we talk a lot about AI, and he sort of tells me, it's one of my windows to what's happening. And I am I'm a big follower of General Lanier, who I quoted before, when he says we lower our standards of what a human does or how a human thinks to make machines look smarter. So the environment is always changing. Every time we have a new technology changes behavior. So when we have a new technology, everything that we have done into the past, it's no longer as useful as data as it's going to be what we have to do in the future. So my point is being empathetic in whatever moment in time and how people navigate understanding other people and connecting with other people is always going to change. So what I worry is that we get stuck. And again, I'm going to quote Jaron, he has this concept called locked in. Sometimes we get locked in a suboptimal technology and we don't notice it, and we build layers and layers and layers of technology on top of it, and we just did a big disservice to us. For example, there's no audio file that can play real music anymore because we built it on a bunch of layers that had to simplify what music sounds like in order to make it shareable and programmable, etc. So the point is, are we going to do that to empathy? Is empathy going to be some sort of simplistic, simplified model of what real empathy is, and we're going to believe that it's empathy, and then we're going to sort of keep building stuff on top of it, and then we're just sort of reducing what humanity is. We're reducing our personalities and our complexity. I'm sort of a proponent of, I'm actually, as a businessman, I'm not worried at all about a machine supposedly doing what I do socially. Zero problems. Because as somebody I've worked in sales my entire life, done businesses, everything that I work on is usually around education or entrepreneurship. And when you deal with people all the time, and then you see what AI is doing, you see the gap. You see the huge abyss between how people are really like and what machines are saying. And I think we get a distorted idea of what machines can do because the media present in a certain way, and because technologists and entrepreneurs are incentivized to. There's no, if you say, I don't remember who said this, but if you say something's going to happen in 20 years, you will get no money. But if you say it's happening in 5, then you can raise some money. So I think that I'm just trying to be a little more. I just push us to be a little careful and sort of more cautious about how we approach some of these things. And sort of, if I had to put my money, I would say we will never have a machine that does exactly what a human does in terms of empathy. But I may be wrong, of course. I guess one more question. Yeah. Oh, yeah, just tell me.
I met a couple of Argentinians before, and they're
Yay!
very optimistic.
We're very optimistic. Oh, that's funny. I would say, it's interesting what perceptions are. I would say Argentinians are some of the more conservative and sort of, I wouldn't say negative. It's not pessimistic. Pessimism is more negative people, I would say, compared to Brazilians. Like Brazilians are always dancing and happy. So no, I don't know if there's anything. I think I would consider myself more of a global citizen. I've lived in many countries, and I love to travel. And I love to meet people, and I think I sort of lost a little bit of that Argentinianism in the process. Yeah.
My question is related to people being disconnected socially.
Yeah.
Due to, like, for example, virtual reality, they get used to too much virtual reality, they lose the skills of dealing with other people normally. So, I think this might be some of the risks that we lose our social capabilities to technology.
Right. Yes, I think usually there's a lot of talk about, like, are we sort of losing ourselves in social media, or what's going to happen when we have our VR headsets and we're all always on some sort of matrix. I'm not sure. I'm always very skeptical of both the super optimistic and the super pessimistic. Like, I don't think we're going to have the matrix, and I also don't think we're going to have the utopia. I don't know what we're going to have. However, I do like the concept I read once of crippling technology. You know what a cripple is? Like somebody that, like, if you can't walk with one leg, you're a cripple. If you don't have one arm, you're a cripple. So the idea of crippling technology intentionally, which means if you let it, any technology will overrun your life, will take control of everything you do, because that's its goal. Technology is a business. So, Facebook would rather you spend more time than less time. Facebook doesn't care about what your goals are. Facebook has its own goals, right? Now, I'm not saying let's not have Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. I'm saying if we don't cripple it intentionally for our own personal lives, we sort of lose control of our lives. There's an author called Cal Newport who has a very good book, which I recommend to read. It's called Deep Work. It's the most important book I read this year. And the idea of deep work is that the two most important skills we're going to have in the future, in our careers, in a world that changes so quickly, is be able to learn things quickly. We have to adapt ourselves a lot, and be able to do truly great work. Now, truly great work is not answering emails, and it's not sort of, checking what the news is saying that day. Truly great work is, from writing a book to building a company to whatever it is. But the point is, to do those two things, to learn things quickly and do great work, we need to be able to focus. And I do truly believe people are losing the capacity to focus. People don't, I realize now that the best work I do is with a notepad on a coffee shop with a pen. It's not on the computer. Because the computer is so many things are trying to get my attention, right? So his whole premise, Cal Newport's premise is, we need to sort of be careful how we approach technology so we don't lose the ability to focus, because if we don't focus, we won't do great work, and we won't be able to adapt, and we will be left behind. So I do believe that a lot of people are going to lose in this economy because they have sort of lost autonomy to Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and WhatsApp and whatever you want, like phones. I have a very bad phone, a very old phone. My girlfriend hates me. She says, get a better phone. I'm like, no, I don't want because I know if I have an iPhone, this thing does everything, so I'm going to be hooked to the iPhone. So I'd rather have a bad phone. I think it's individually, each of us can plan differently how we approach technology so we don't get lost in it. So I think, I don't know, one more question, I guess, if there's any more questions? Good. Okay, thank you very much.